Someone put this on my chair today, so I was very touched because it's a koala bear. Well, emerging possibilities is our thought for today. And there's a story of a famous astronomer who travelled to a remote village, and she wanted to observe a rare celestial sky. So she took all of her equipment with her, her telescope and her charts, and I don't know what astronomers use, but she took them all with her. And as she was working, one of the young village children was watching her and fascinated by what she was doing. So the astronomer was looking through her telescope, and she saw the child and she said, "Do you want to come and have a look through the telescope?" And the young girl nodded, and she looked through and she said, "Oh, it's so beautiful." And those words really touched the astronomer because she hadn't noticed that. And the very thing that attracted her to being an astronomer in the start was the beauty of the sky, you know, the magic of all the stars and everything. But in her expert realm, she'd forgotten about that. And she later looked on that moment as being one of the most important things in her career because it really took her back to the very reason why she'd chosen to be an astronomer. And it was a very meaningful moment for her. And this is what the innocent mind does to us. It takes us back to wonder. It shows us sometimes the unexpected. And where our old thinking sometimes is very limited, it puts limits around what we see, the mind of wonder is unlimited. In the Zen teachings, there's a thing called Shoshin, which is the practice of the beginner's mind. And it's not that easy a practice because the practice is that you come and you meet life's experiences as if it's the first time. And so we know that when we come to repeated situations, we often bring our old thoughts with us, our old assumptions, or I know what's going to happen here. We almost can't help that. So to practice the beginner's mind is quite a hard thing. So putting aside those beliefs we have and those, how things should be, we can cancel out a little if we try that practice. That might be something you just want to try a little bit this week. When the mind's curious, new solutions often come up. So if we see a problem, we might be able to say to ourselves, well, there might be a different solution here, or, I wonder if I could try this, or if something else would work. And that's a very good way to be because the creative mind then comes through. It's a really creative space to be in. If your mind is cluttered, and we do often talk about emptying the mind, it doesn't mean that you're not thinking about things or you're just totally being thoughtless, but it's often a place where we find that we get insight. So how often have you had some sort of problem that you're trying to sort out and you just can't figure out what to do about it, and then you think, oh, well, forget about it, and a week later you think about it again, and then the solution comes to you straight away, and you say, well, why didn't I think of that last week? So, well, you couldn't because your mind was too full. So emptying the mind is a great thing. So this kind of beginner's mind is the sort of mind we want to have when we're looking towards the future. And sometimes the future can bring fear with it. We worry about things. We think, well, whatever. We even might brace ourselves for the future. Have you ever had that feeling where it's like, oh, I don't know what's going to happen here. I'm a bit worried about this. But what if, instead of being worried, we were curious? So we're open to possibilities. Oh, this is exciting. I wonder if we could do this, or this might look quite different. And the other thing to remember about the future as well is that it's not in the distance, it's actually already implanted in us. So all those solutions and those uncertainties that we have, the answers are already here. Maybe we haven't connected with them yet, but they already exist. So here's what a Zen priest said. He said, "In the beginner's mind, there are many possibilities. In the expert's mind, there are a few." So what if you approached a familiar situation this week, you just chose one, and pretended you were seeing it for the very first time? So you went into it without any preconceived ideas or any old thinking about it. I mean, that might be an amazing experience, and I do urge you to give it a try. What if you could put aside any fear or worry about a challenge you have and meet it with curiosity? And maybe Spirit's already trying to show you the new way or the new something, but your expert mind is saying, "Oh, I know how to do this. This is how it should be." Well, what if you could let go of that and instead look at it with the eyes of a child? And so in Matthew, Jesus said, "I thank you, Father, because you've hidden these things from the wise and the intelligent and have revealed them to infants." And so I have been doing a little bit of a crash mini course in AI because I think I don't really understand it, and like everyone's saying, "Oh, everything's going to be AI," and I want to understand and know what it is. So it was an eye-opener. They even taught us how to make a clone of ourselves, and I thought, I don't really want to do that. So interesting topic, but one of the words that I kept hearing was the idea of futuristic thinking. And, I've heard about it before, but it did really wake me up to going and doing some research on, what is this futuristic thing that they're talking about. So I found a good definition. A futurist is someone who studies the patterns, energies, and emerging possibilities that point towards something new for humanity. And I thought, well, wow, that's a whole topic. That's really interesting. Futurists have a tendency to listen beneath the surface, so they look for undercurrents. And we think of futurists working in the areas of technology, they work in culture, and also in consciousness, because they work with belief systems. And that's very much kind of connected to Unity. We talk about consciousness a lot, like what are our ways of thinking and, what's in our conscious mind. And, people used to think the Earth was flat, right? And now they know it's round, and that was a belief system, that the Earth was flat, but if you know it's round, then it changes everything. It changes the whole way that you think about the Earth and everything connected to it. So, in essence, the futurist's job is to help us recognize the potential. And if we can do that, we become kind of participants in shaping what is to come. So we're creators of the future. A futurist doesn't just think about what is here and now. They're always looking forward. And so the moment we can drop this idea, well, I already know, and make room for that creative mind, then you really are participating in the future. So here's a question you might want to ask yourself. Am I a futurist? Think about that one. Am I a futurist? So there were a couple of really great futurists, and one that comes to mind is Barbara Marx Hubbard. And I particularly am interested in her because she was thought of as a spiritual futurist. And so what she did was she interpreted these evolutionary trends of humanity, but she did it through the lens of spirituality. And so in the late 1900s, she saw that there was a global crisis. Well, that's what she recognized. She says, I can see it in the climate, I see it in inequality, I see it in political tension. hey, there's a whole lot there that we're seeing today too, I'd say. But she didn't see them as signs of collapse. She said, this is great. This is what I call an evolutionary stress. That was kind of a phrase she coined, evolutionary stress, and that's great because it wakes us up. And so her thought about this next evolutionary stage was that human beings would kind of recognize their spirituality and they'd become co-creators with God. And so she didn't see this next stage as being technological. She saw it as spiritual. She said there's going to be this great spiritual awakening. And she was pretty well right about that. So she took her, I guess, knowledge as a futurist and was an advisor to US leaders. She helped them with long-term planning, and she said to them, this is a quote, "If you're only solving today's problems, you're already behind." So she talked about long-range forecasting. She helped them with conflict prevention and peace-building strategies, and she was really into global cooperation. So some really great things that we could, use today, I feel. So another great futurist was Alvin Toffler, and some of you might have read a couple of his books. He wrote the book Future Shock and The Third Wave, and he was really exploring this rapid technological change that we were seeing in society. He said it's going to reshape everyday life, and that was a very good prediction. I mean, we've been the guinea pigs in all of that. But there's a story told about him and his wife. His wife, Heidi, was a futurist as well. And so they went to a research facility in the 1960s, and there were a whole lot of computer scientists there back in the day when computers were like a whole room. And one of the young engineers was really excited, and he said, one day everyone's going to have a computer in their home. And they all burst into laughter, the managers and all the other people and everything, except for Toffler, who took note of that. And he was noted as saying to his wife on the way out, "The future always begins as a joke to someone." Yeah. So these two individuals, in their own way, recognize that the future is not something that happens to us, it's something that emerges through us. We use our creative mind to create it. And so tomorrow is already taking shape, all right? And kind of mirrors the unity principle that the world we see emerges from the consciousness we hold, because we're always creating that future. So the beginner's mind, it's open, it's curious, it's kind of unattached to the old way of thinking, and we allow ourselves to become open and receptive to whatever that path ahead is. And this means that when we're in conflict, instead of assuming someone's intention or thinking something is a certain way, we might ask ourselves, well, what else could be true? If we're trying to solve a problem that we feel stuck in, the question might be, well, what else could I try? The German poet Rainer Rilke said, "The future enters into us long before it happens, so we can shape it as it forms." And so in Unity, as Unity people, we're grounded in spiritual principles, and we know a few basic truths. One, that we are divine in essence. Does everybody know that? Yes? That our thoughts shape our experience? Yep. And that we have direct access to wisdom. That doesn't mean we're always wise, but we have the access. Okay. So when we combine these spiritual principles with the beginner's openness, the future's not something that happens to us. We consciously co-create it. And this is the place where emerging possibilities come through. And so, in Matthew 14, there's a really great story that illustrates some of these ideas. You've probably heard it before, The disciples are rowing across the lake in the dark. Have you ever had that feeling? Rowing in the lake in the dark. I mean, you know, the Bible is symbolic, and the symbolism is that we're kind of lost in this inner state of what do we do next? But then Jesus comes towards them, and he's walking on water. Wow, that is amazing. But here's what Peter does. He responds with the beginner's mind. Instead of saying, well, this is impossible, people can't walk on water, he doesn't say that. He says, if it is you, call me to come to you. And I love this because Peter is curious. He doesn't come to any conclusions. He puts aside any fear or worry he might have and replaces it with a sense of wonder. So Jesus puts out his hands and says, come. And really what he's doing is inviting Peter into this new dimension or this new possibility. And so Peter steps out of the boat, maybe feeling maybe a little unsafe or a little concerned, and what he's doing actually symbolically is stepping into the future. And he sees the wind and he sees the waves, you know, all the turbulent things that can happen when we go out of our comfort zone. And he starts to get a little worried, and he changes from openness and, you know, the beginner's mind to this, oh, I'm a bit worried about what might happen next. And you know the story. What happens is he begins to sink. Well, it's not the wind or the waves that have changed, it's his consciousness that's changed. So Jesus immediately reaches out for him and he asks him one very important question. Why did you doubt? It's almost like Jesus saying to him, look, you were doing so well. And then you let yourself start to think of negative things. You've got to stay in the good consciousness. And so this great biblical story teaches us that we can sink when we return to the old, closed, fearful mind, that we can rise when we have trust in what Spirit is revealing to us, and that the beginner's mind allows the impossible to become possible. And so we know that the future is not shaped by outer conditions, not by the wind, not by the water. It is shaped by our consciousness. And you know the saying, we do not see things as they are, we see them as we are. And so we're going to take a little pause for a minute, just take a pause as we take in all of these words. Go within nice and gently, letting go of any fears or worries, just allow them to fall away, and set aside everything that you think you already know. Allow yourself to walk forward softly and slowly into a bright and spacious future. See the clarity and the courage and the openness. It's just waiting for you to step into it. And as you step forward, ask Spirit, what do you want me to know today about the emerging future? Let all the wisdom rise and breathe it in. See yourself as the futurist, one who can recognize patterns and habits, one that is open to new ideas, willing to use new tools, perhaps go in a new way with grace and with curiosity. Feel the expansion, knowing that something new is beginning, that something good is coming through. And let that excitement move through you Spirit is preparing you for the possibilities. So breathing all of this in and breathing out as you return to this space. And so we are going to close today with some powerful words, and I invite you to say them with me. My mind is open. My heart is ready. I welcome emerging possibilities. I'm excited. And so it is.